Good morning, everybody. So just to, I think we're going to go straight into the poll, Nick, if that's okay. So we have a poll here. So your experience of RPA, we'd just like you to give us some answers, whether you've never used it, whether it's something that you are thinking about, or whether it's something that you're already using and are already getting some benefit from. So I'll just give you a couple of minutes just to answer those questions. Okay. Okay, so there's quite a high proportion of people that are thinking about using it, and those that are haven't used it or are currently using it and getting some benefit is about even. So that's not uncommon. It's nice to see that people are keen to see what RPA can offer, and that certainly came across in the introductions, I think. So hopefully we will give you some insight into kind of how RPA works and what the different types are, and as I say, when you see the demonstration of our particular version of RPA, you'll hopefully see how easy it is to build a bot. So some things that for discussion, perhaps just a bit later on, maybe. So if you are thinking about using it, just consider what the barriers are to deployment in your council, and what other information you might need to know. Hopefully we'll cover off some of that as we go through the session this morning. But just keep those kind of in your heads just to think about, really. So just as a quick introduction, I know we've done it very briefly earlier. So my name is Simon Pike. I am the Market Solutions Specialist for Public Sector at Netcall. So I cover off responsibility for RPA in public sector, in local government, particularly in housing as well, and also our low-code solution and the rest of our contact centre technology as well. And I have here with me Chris Roberts. Chris.
Hi, Chris Roberts, Senior Solution Architect at Netcall. As I say, work across all the different technologies, RPA being one of those, and happy to talk you through our solution today.
Fantastic. So what is RPA and how does it help councils? So robotic process automation, or RPA, is designed to provide automated ways of managing bulky or repetitive tasks which don't necessarily require human interaction or decision making, but may historically have done so. They can also be used to provide ways of integrating with legacy systems where APIs may not be available, or perhaps where they're costly extra for existing systems. They can also be an ideal way to remove the potential for human error, for example, in repetitive data entry, and they can also be used to log into multiple systems at once to pass information and update records efficiently. So let's just have a quick look at some of the benefits, the cautions and questions to ask yourselves when considering it. So RPA is ideal for processing, as we've already said, high volume routine tasks, which can then free up resources to undertake more essential services. This is not about replacing a person with a bot, it's about supporting and supplementing your existing resource to be more efficient. Other benefits include a reduction in errors that can be introduced by undertaking a task manually, and they can carry out more than one task at a time in a queue. So cautions. It is important to know that RPA alone can't deliver digital transformation. It is, however, another tool in the box towards achieving an effective digital transformation program. If you have a process now which has been done a certain way for a long time that has perhaps latency or bottlenecks in the process, when you introduce RPA, these issues won't necessarily go away. It's a solution that can deliver a better outcome, but only if you are sure the process that is running is efficient in the first place. So there may be a need for you to go through and transform your service first before considering how RPA can assist. It's critical, therefore, as I say, to review your process and make sure that you're not going to introduce a magnitude of errors because the process is wrong. RPA will only follow the steps you tell it to follow, and it doesn't think for itself. That's not its primary purpose. So questions for you to ask yourselves. You need to assess your overall digital transformation program and make sure that you're introducing RPA for the right reasons. It shouldn't be used as a sticking plaster to try and fix something that is fundamentally broken. If the process is already flawed, like we said, it won't resolve that, but it might instead identify more issues because of the consistent way in which the bot operates. So to give you an example, if you've got a process running consistently, it might identify where there are errors, for example, in previous data entry, and therefore you get exceptions on records that you're trying to match potentially. You need to look at whether you are just lifting and shifting your existing process or whether you are indeed going to transform the whole service. Is there a buy-in from your departments to be a true digital transformation and the implementation of solutions to support that? This means having the right experts involved and understanding the risks. We've said already that RPA shouldn't be used as a sticking plaster, but if you wanted to implement RPA as part of a lift and shift, you can, but you need to understand the risks and have a plan in place to come back and revisit and improve the service later. You also need to think about your resourcing. Do you have the right people in place, not only to build the bots in the first place, but to maintain them in the future? It's key to understand that bots do need an element of maintenance. Where do you see RPA having the biggest impact? Well, there's essentially two types of RPA as far as we're concerned in terms of what we're telling you today. There's unattended, and then there's something called attended, which Chris will come on to in a minute. But an unattended bot can be something like that's triggered by an API, example in the tell us once process, for example, which we might see a little bit later, data mining across multiple systems, and the processing of data. So, for example, we've used RPA in a number of health authorities already in hospitals to pull some information together from different systems to help identify patients at risk of other medical conditions like diabetes, for example, where that data might otherwise have taken a long time to pull together because of human involvement. So using RPA means you can extract all that information from lots of systems, pull it together, evaluate it, and help identify potential patients earlier. As an example of, as I say, how it's being used in health. In local government, it could be used to identify those that may be at risk of non-payment of rent or council tax, perhaps. Again, extracting information using data mining and evaluating a pattern and then using that to your benefit. Chris.
So, attended bots. So an attended bot is essentially initiated and used to support front office staff when, for example, they may be on a phone call talking through a process or talking something through with a citizen. And it's really to help them support that call and manage it more efficiently. Two essential types of attended bot that we can use. The first is where a bot is triggered and takes over the user's screen and PC in order to process a job. These are used to ensure things like consistent approaches to handling requests, ensuring systems are updated, and potentially shaving time off calls when being handled. The only drawback, as mentioned, when using this option is essentially it takes over their screen. So therefore, while that bot is processing, while it's carrying out its task, it actually takes control of the user's PC so they can't actually continue to work while that's in process. Therefore, the other option of attended bot is where it's triggered. We can then pass that information. That can be done either manually or retrieved off the user's screen. This in turn then hands that information over to an unattended bot running on the machine in the background. So a good example of this is where we're on a call. The agent passes the attended bot a piece of information, such as could be a change of address or contact information. This will then hand that information over to an unattended bot, which behind the scenes is then accessing multiple systems, could be spreadsheets, could be databases, carrying out the rest of the process without interrupting the call that's taking place. Okay, so what we're going to show you here, so we've got a quick video. So we've done this for a video perspective, so we can slow it down and we can talk over the top as it's driving through. And what we're going to do is we're going to take you through an example of a working bot that we have in place, demonstrating essentially a tell us once process. This video will include what's involved in setting these up, the functionality available, and then we'll actually see that bot in action that we see configured. What we're going to do is we're first going to start in the Liberty controller, where the RPA configuration is set up and carried out. So first we've created our bot. We then come into what we call flows. So we've created a flow, and this is the process that's going to take place. We've attached our bot to that particular flow that we've created. Within each of the flows and processes that are available, we have full version control. So you can upload new versions of this process as and when you build it. And then you can determine how this is triggered. So at the bottom here, we're seeing a Liberty Create, which is the low-code platform, but we'll go through some of the other triggers that are available as well. So the first one, Liberty Create. So from low-code, we can trigger this to the rule. We can also schedule these to run. We could trigger based on email, or we can actually set APIs for other systems to interact with. So from the Liberty Create, we can also pass parameters. So these are optional. The one that we're going to see today is passing in parameters such as a forename, a surname, and a change of contact information. So once we've configured our trigger, and here we can see this is a Liberty Create, this is when we can then go into our flow. Oh, sorry, into the Liberty Create low-code platforms. First, we're going to show the rule that we've created. So this is our trigger, essentially. In the response, we have a new action that we've introduced into the low-code platform called QRPA job. We're going to be triggering that bot. This could just simply be an API from any other system. And then it's brought through the parameters that we want to pass. So the ones we had configured were the forename, we have the telephone number, and we have the surname. So we've selected where we're going to grab those bits of information. Once again, this can be parameters within an API call. And then what we're going to go into is our studio. So the Liberty RPA Studio is where we configure what the bot's actually going to do. So you have a series of activities on the left, all the different actions that we can take place. But we're going to show through the one here today for our tell us once process. So firstly, we're going to open a browser. We're then going to load the application that we want to interact with. We're going to give the bot some its own credentials. So it's going to grab its own username and password. It's then going to find the username field and enter that username we've passed it, doing the same with the password as well. So we're going to authenticate for audit purposes. It's then going to log into the system. So we can do a key press here where we're going to hit enter to log in. Using our tools, we can then search for the forename field. And we're then going to enter the forename information that we passed in our parameters, carrying out the same within the surname field. And then we're going to run a search to find that particular person. We're going to select that person that we found, and we're then going to go and edit their information. They're going to find their telephone home number that we've passed in, find that field, enter that information, save on the record, and then exit the browser in order to complete the job that's being processed. So now we're going to show that in action. So what we're going to do first, we're going to load up our low-code application that we've built, and we have slowed this down for ease to see what's happening. So we've got Jane Wilson's account here. Now our trigger was on anytime Jane Wilson, oh sorry, not Jane, anytime a person's account is updated. We've got our telephone home field, so we've made a change here. We're then going to come down and we're going to save that record. Once we've saved that record, the job that we saw earlier on is now going to trigger, passing that information over to the bot. And on the bottom right here, we can see the bot loaded. And that's then going to receive that job coming in. So here we go. We've received the job. We're now going to trigger that process, that flow that we've seen. So firstly, we're going to open the browser and we're going to navigate to the URL of that system. So we grab the username and password for our bot, and we're now going to enter that in. So we're going to authenticate itself. And it's now searching the screen for that forename field that we gave it. Once again, entering the parameters, searching for the surname field. We'll enter the parameters again that we've passed, and then we're going to search for that record. On the right-hand side, we've opened that person, clicked the edit, search for the telephone home field, and we're then going to key in once again what that parameter was, saving that record away, and ultimately completing the process. So all of this is reportable in the background, so we know which ones have completed, what's been processed, and all of the jobs that have been carried out by our bots running on those machines.
Thank you, Chris. So when considering RPA, what questions should a council ask a supplier? So I think there are a number of things to look at. So the first one of which is automation. Is this coding or is it drag and drop? So as you've seen in the demonstration, the interface is quite intuitive from what you saw. All of the build of that flow was done by a drag and drop style. It's part of the standard Liberty platform now, so it's fully integrated into the rest of our Liberty solutions as well. But it's certainly a question that you need to ask any supplier. Does it work on that drag and drop basis, or do you require specialist coding skills to get through that? Custom code, can I custom code, and is it well-known code? For example, Python. So in our system, there isn't any coding required when building your bot. There's a lot of full library of pre-built activities, like opening in browsers, data entry, logging into systems, etc., and interfacing with the existing Microsoft suites of products. So it doesn't actually require any specific coding skills to build a bot. However, we do recognize that any system that you buy very rarely covers 100% of how you want to use it. So there is the ability to extend the features within our specific RPA solution through coding extensions using Python, which does give you that ability to take the standard functionality, which we think will deal with the majority of scenarios, but should you need to extend it, then that can be done within our particular platform. Rollout, who can do the build? Must they be developers? So you don't need specifically be a developer to build a bot, as long as it's got that right interface, as ours has. But I've stated already, if you wanted to extend it, then using Python scripting, then you could do so. But it should be noted that you can build comprehensive bots using the existing library of activities already, again, particularly within our solution. And we've done that deliberately to, in recognition of the fact that the skill set shortage that's out there at the moment. So you can build using the standard features, but you may need to extend it, in which case you would need some skills to do that.
So flexibility. If my process changes, are updates fast, easy, and free? Yes. So all the updates are carried out within the Liberty RPA Studio that we saw earlier on. And that's just using essentially the drag and drop builder and all of the activities and functions available within there. Once those changes are completed, they can then be deployed as a new version ready to make live and start processing based on your changes. How does AI help? Will the bot respond to moving screen items? So I guess this is one of the biggest questions asked when you start using things like RPA bots. Will they function if my icons and fields that are used, if they move? And will the process still continue to function? So what we've done is, in order to resolve this, Liberty RPA has inbuilt computer vision and AI. And what that means is that if it cannot routinely locate what it's looking for based on its original location, it actually continues to search the screen in order to locate it. Maximizing value. Can I use one bot for many processes? So yes, you can. When creating the flows within the Liberty controller, as we saw earlier on, essentially you have the ability to attach one or more bots to it. This includes the ability to essentially assign a single bot also to multiple flows. So that single bot can be managing multiple processes. Each of those, when they come in as different jobs, they can then have different priorities over those jobs, allowing them to be processed in order that you choose. I guess the final points on there, also around hyper automation. So what is hyper automation? So what we've done is we've discussed this morning a bit around RPA and how that can be used for forms of integration, also for routine, repetitive processes. But in the real world, most processes are not always simple and repetitive. Therefore, the real challenge in order to scale beyond the initial routine processes cannot always be solved by RPA in silo, but instead it's by combining a number of tools and technologies together. So hyperautomation is the combining of these tool sets together, such as the power of a low-code platform solution and RPA, allowing you to realize some fantastic benefits and really solve those more complex tasks across your organization. So what's the best way of embarking on RPA projects? So I guess the first point on there is start small, act fast. So I guess this is potentially true when you introduce any sort of new technologies into an organization, where it's best to practice at first, choose a small process, and quickly reveal that value. So once again, based on the examples we've shown today around updating contact details, you could actually put that in place. You can start to demonstrate the capabilities, grow your confidence in a solution. The worst thing to try and do is go for a full, huge end-to-end large process first, because that can really start to make it a long, drawn-out process before you start realizing those benefits up front.
Yeah, so thank you. I think two of the points just as we've got up there. So have a champion. When the business case owner is the champion, you'll start to see amazing returns, and you can see those fast. So having someone that really sees the value in implementing something like RPA, this has two main benefits. You gain that success early because the case owner or the champion sees the results very quickly, and they in turn will then evangelize on your behalf to others. And that means real results make it easy. When you see those real results, it makes it easy to evangelize and to sell the benefits of that internally within the rest of your organization. It also gives you a fast and easy point of contact. And for outside support and guidance, so you can come to us, and we're here to help out our customers. We like to check in on our customers' progress. So it is something that you went down the route of, then we would be happy to help you along with that. And the third one is involve IT from the start. It's very easy sometimes to take the route of leaving IT out at the start, but I think if you get their buy-in early, because you will need their support for physical environments particularly. So it may sound strange, but our experience has shown that setting up the physical environment for the bot can take longer than setting up the bot itself. Any bot needs a computer or a virtual environment, a copy of the software it will be working on, and a user account to log in and do the work, as we showed in Chris's demonstration. It all takes time, and it does raise questions. So even if you have one IT member on your change team, this will allow things to move faster, and will end up being that more cooperation is achieved across your organization. And that's us done for this morning. So thank you for listening. If there are any questions, then we're happy to take them. Nick, back over to yourself.
I'm here. Don't worry, I'm here. Yes, like I said, yeah, you're not done yet because you say you're done for the morning, but we might have questions. So if you have a question, could you unmute yourself and state your name and then your question, please? And don't all rush at once. Any questions at all? Well, I have one. Well, I've got quite a few, to be honest, but where are the quickest of wins? You know, if a local authority, obviously, you're not giving away this technology, out of the goodness of your hearts. No doubt there'll be a monetary cost attached to it. We know that obviously local authorities like to prove the business case and demonstrate return on investment before they then apply the technology across the organisation. Where are the really, really quick wins for local authorities that you've identified or seen?
So I think for me, some of the quick wins are some of the ones we talked about. So something like a notify once, where you might have lots of disparate systems around your authority. So something like a notification of a death, for example, where that comes in, that could trigger off a bot that could go off to your other systems and notify those other directorates of that death without the need to send emails manually, have searching for the records, updating the records manually. It might sound like that's not a lot of time spent doing that, but when you think about it across the number of systems that you might have, it can become quite time consuming with the number of changes that you might get. And that's just one example of how you might use that. You could use it for updates on change of address, change of contact details, whatever it might be around that. And I think the other one is where you are looking to evaluate a set of data and trying to retrieve that and consolidate that across something or do some pattern analysis. I think that's another area where you could potentially see some big gains.
Excellent. And how much quicker is it? How much? Oh, sorry. Who's?
Sorry, I was just going to say another another potential, and it could be a saving really, is the integration side. So a lot of systems today, new future systems are having APIs built in, but it doesn't always mean that those APIs are cost effective. So they might be quite costly. So that's where RPA can actually remove the need for having those APIs available to you. As well as legacy systems, even spreadsheets that a lot of people are using these days, RPA can continue to function and integrate with those. So there's a lot of wins on that side as well.
Excellent. And I guess, you know, this technology doesn't have holidays, doesn't get sick, can work 24/7.
Yeah.
Is it turkeys voting for? I didn't want to say this, but is it turkeys voting for Christmas? Potentially, or are we saying that, you know, the implementation of RPA means that high volume, low impact work then means that, you know, agents can then deal with the more sort of low volume but really high impact sort of activity? I think that's it for me. I think that's where RPA will become kind of, you know, into its own, if you like. I think it is about taking away some of those you know, low-level bits of work to allow people to focus on the more critical and essential areas where they perhaps haven't had the time to focus, and that in itself could lead to improved digital transformation, and getting the bots to do those jobs does free up resource, so that they can focus on those more essential and critical services, certainly. Excellent, thank you. I'm going to ask, does anyone have any, you don't necessarily have to have a question, but do you have any observations about what's been discussed? Jamie Davies, come in, you have your thumb up.
Hi, Jamie Davies, Comanche County Council. In regards to the data being captured, can it cope with Ajax content?
In what use case? What are you looking to pass?
Well, if you return a list of results, if you had a look in, a lot of modern systems now will display their result sets in Ajax. Okay.
So yes. Yeah, we do have the capability to, essentially it can loop itself through a series of, so if you sent it a list, for example, right, it can do a loop through that list and process those one by one. Okay. As well as on the other end as well, that if it receives back multiple data, we can also manage that and pass it through as well.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent, thank you, Jamie. Anybody else got any questions or observations? Joseph.
Hi everyone. So for me, one of the questions I wanted to ask is around, because you kind of alluded it to the ICT resourcing of it. How much of a hands-on approach would ICT need towards it with regard to maintenance, or would that be something you would kind of hand over to the area, the department, the directorates? How would you go about doing that yourselves?
So I guess it's everyone's different. The thing is, the bots they are installed on a server. So they are installed on a background server to essentially be processed. They can update themselves. So from the Liberty controller, once that bot's installed, it can then essentially carry out those updates. But there is still some maintenance around that side with server patching and so forth. I guess from the actual building the flow itself, Liberty RPA Studio can be installed anywhere in order to build those flows. So if you wanted to actually bring some of that down more into the service areas to manage building their own flows, then that's perfectly capable. And then ICT can just manage the actual bots within the servers themselves. So it all depends on where you want that split to be.
That's brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks, Joseph. Any more? Anyone else wish to pose a question or make an observation? Oh, there is wait a minute. Julian.
Hi there, Julian, Applications Manager, Comanche. Yeah, more of an observation and nothing to do with the technology or the concept. What I'm finding from experience, it's the service buy-in it's the mapping of the process, it's that journey to get to the point before you can get it into the technology. And that's a big lesson that I've learned, or we've learned over the last 6 months, is that, you know, you may have a one-off exercise to map a process with a service, and then 6 months down the line, oh no, it's completely different, or we only need to automate this bit, we don't want to automate the full journey. And it's just more of an observation and commitment that you know, when you are doing this journey, this getting that buy-in, you know, a lot of people say, oh, it's part of my role, but really you need you know, some dedicated resource in the service areas to drive through some of these transformations, if they're going to look at doing it seriously, if you know.
Yeah.
Is that a business analyst? Is that business analyst sort of assets, do you think?
Definitely. It's, you know, maybe these are where services like third parties could come in and help in that journey as well, isn't it? You know, whereas the service may not have the resource to do it, but they certainly need the buy-in as part of the journey because you're doing it for that service. And it's just an observation I've picked up, particularly internally. You know, you go to a service area, they're keen, they map something out in a Word document just to give you something. But when you get down to the brass and get it into trying to map it into a solution, it's then you've got to get that buy-in to see it through. And it's just, you know, something that it is a challenge, and something you do really need to get that commitment and buy-in early on from the service area to go down this journey. You know, you can't do it halfway. It's got to be all or nothing, really.
Simon?
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. I think it's like anything from a digital transformation perspective, isn't it? It's all right what you start with, but you'll soon learn by implementing new technologies and new ways of working that the way you've always worked might not be the way you want to work going forward. And so refining those processes over time certainly does require resource to facilitate that. And I guess that's the way, that's you know, the way in which agile development works and agile working, particularly in you know, either whether it be low code or whether it be RPA. You know, designing that process and as I said, really in the conversation, it's not a sticking plaster. It's not just a way of solving an immediate problem. It needs thinking about really and determining how you want that to work, and then keeping an eye on that and modifying it as you identify issues, certainly.
And I think that's where it's really important about so the first point on the last slide, we're starting small. So far too often people approach these things with the grand design, the big picture in mind. But actually, it's better to break that down into the small processes, the small chunks, and get those quick wins. And what that does as well is it actually brings a lot of people along on the journey as well. So as you are building those small components, testing, proving their capability, that's where more people have more ideas. They have more buy-in to the solution and want to take it forward. And then it can naturally grow over time.
It is a corporate tool, isn't it? I mean, you know, from borough and district all the way up to, you know, county unitary, you know, every authority is going to have multiple uses for RPA technology. Joseph, you want to come in again?
Yeah, it was just on the back of that. So exactly as what you've all just said. Again, as you said, start small, act fast. It's about the transparency of being able to see the change. If we, well, looking back 2 years ago, how many people actually used a lot of the solutions online to be able to order their shopping? COVID fast-forwarded a lot of that, and being able to have people look at that and go, oh, okay, there's your proof of concept, and about being able to roll that out and change their hearts and minds. So again, as you said, start small, act fast, make sure people can see, and you've got the buy-in from the ground all the way up.
Yeah, excellent. Simon, do you want to come back? Do you want any last words from you or Chris?
Yeah, no, I think as Chris has just said, or as Joseph said, it's about that start small, identify something where you can get a quick win, realise the benefit, get that champion involved to support you and evangelise on your behalf across other services, saying what benefit they've got out of the new technology, getting that message spread across your organisation will bring out of the woodwork other processes where RPA can offer value. And I think it is then about, identifying them, looking at them and evaluating, as we say, what are they trying to achieve? Does the process need to be modified? And if it does, building it in that way and working with them all the way through building it as well. So take an iterative approach, build it, show it, modify it, build it, show it, modify it. Take that approach and you'll end up with a a good result and a good piece of kit at the end of the day.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Pike. Thank you, Chris. Very, very insightful. Stimulated some questions and some discussion there. What we have got time for now, and it gives me an opportunity to fully use all of the functionality of Zoom meetings, is we're just going to pop into a quick breakout. I'm going to create 2 breakout rooms, which you're going